Alright, in today's video I'm going to be doing my picks and a full card breakdown for UFC 328 Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev, and I'm not going to waste any time, so let's go ahead and get into it. But I actually do want to say I think this is a gas card and probably a 9, maybe a 9.5 out of 10. First fight is Clayton Carpenter versus Jose Ochoa. Carpenter is a well-rounded fighter with a solid submission game and Muay Thai. He's 8-2 with back-to-back good losses against Tagir Ulanbekov and Jafil Filio. Jose Ochoa is an aggressive pressure striker who is also 8-2 with 7 knockouts, and his 2 losses were decision losses to Asu Almabayev and Lonnie Kavanaugh, who are both very good fighters. I think Ochoa should get this one done. Next fight is Bisengor Susurkayev versus Jordan Santos. Santos is 1-1 in the UFC with a loss to Ozzy Diaz. Susurkayev is 11-0 overall with 10 finishes, coming off a knockout win over Eric McConaughey. So this seems pretty straightforward to me. Give me Susurkayev. The next fight is Pat Sabatini versus William Gomez. Sabatini is 21-5 overall and 8-2 in the UFC with losses to Diego Lopez and Damon Jackson. He's a high-level wrestler with good jiu-jitsu. Gomez looks like a cool prospect who is only 28 and 5-1 in the UFC, but 2 of his wins were split decisions and 1 was a majority decision. He is a Sonda striker who uses his kicks and range effectively. I like Gomez, but I think Sabatini is going to push the wrestling heavy and get the decision. Next fight is Roman Copilov versus Marco Tulio, and this is a very close fight to me. Copilov is coming off back-to-back decision losses to Paulo Costa, then Gregory Rodriguez, but both of those have aged very well, with Costa and Rodriguez both getting impressive finishes in their next fights. He's primarily a patient, rangy kickboxer who has really good body kicks. Marco Tulio is coming off a pretty bad knockout loss to Christian Leroy Duncan, but I think CLD is a very good fighter. Tulio had 4 knockout wins in a row before that fight, and a very impressive decision win over Yusri Belgori on the Contender Series in 2023. He is a very high-paced, unpredictable striker, and I originally had Copilov, but I think Tulio's volume will make Copilov uncomfortable and not allow him to fully settle into his striking, so give me Tulio. To open the prelims, we have Jared Gordon versus Jim Miller, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I think Jared Gordon gets this one done pretty easily. Miller is 3-3 in his last 6, but the wins are not impressive to me, and he also turns 43 in August. Jared Gordon is 2-2 in his last 4, and the 2 losses were competitive fights to Nasrat Haqparas and Rafa Garcia, and the 2 wins were first-round finishes. Jared Gordon is a solid boxer and a solid grappler and should get Jim Miller out of there. Grant Dawson versus Mateusz Rebecki is a very close fight on the other hand. Both guys are great grapplers, but they get to the ground and do their work there pretty differently. Dawson is a patient striker who likes to get top position, maintain control, and chain submissions, while Rebecki is an explosive striker who pressures fighters and gets into the pocket to initiate his grappling. He is much more of a threat on the feet and the ground in terms of power. I initially was leaning Grant Dawson due to his reach and BJJ ability, but I think this could be one of those the wrestling from each other cancels out and we get into a striking battle kind of fight. And if that happens, I just favor Rebecki on the feet more. Rebecki had that war with Orolbai, and I guess I just trust in that dog a little bit more. He's the much more powerful and aggressive fighter, and with Dawson coming off a knockout loss, I think he could crack him. The next fight is Joel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov, and I think I got maybe a hot take for this fight. I think Joel Alvarez finishes Amosov. Joel Alvarez is 23-3 with 22 finishes, and Amosov is 29-1 with 21 finishes. Amosov is an extremely talented grappler and submission artist with a solid leg kick and decent head movement, but the striking to me is not that great. The speed's not that crazy, and the power doesn't seem that crazy either. Also, I feel like I have to point out that his first 18 wins pre-Bellator are not really impressive at all. He hasn't gotten a knockout win since 2016, and it was this guy. Joel Alvarez is not as good of a wrestler or in top control, but he has solid takedown defense and is very capable of throwing up submissions off his back or in top control. He is also the much better striker in my opinion. He's faster and more powerful on the feet. He mixes up his combos with knees and elbows and leg kicks and is very hard to deal with. So I have Joel Alvarez taking this one pretty clearly. Alright man, ain't no real in-depth analysis needed for this one. I think Ozzy Diaz is decent, but Ateba Gautier should win this pretty convincingly. I want and expect a better performance in his last fight though. Last fight he got multiple knockdowns but was outstruck on volume and percentage by Andrei Puliev, which is not the greatest look. So he needs to go out there and finish Ozzy Diaz, which is also my prediction. To open the main card we have King Green versus Jeremy Stephens, and this should be a very fun, scrappy, old head striking matchup. Jeremy Stephens was cut from the UFC in 2022, did some PFL fights, did some boxing, and then even did some bare knuckle boxing. He's a gritty fighter that throws hard overhand rights, leg kicks, and looks to do work in the clinch. King Green is coming off a very impressive stoppage win over Daniel Zellhuber and is 5-3 in his last 8, only losing to Jalen Turner, Paddy Pimblett, and Mauricio Ruffi. Green has good head movement, rolls with punches well, has quick counters, and is very unorthodox on the feet, which makes him hard to read. I do think this should be a fun fight, but I think it leans clearly to King Green. I think this next fight is a really cool matchup because it kind of highlights what each fighter struggled with in their last fight. Buckley got overwhelmed and wrestle-fucked by a good grappler, and Brady got packed up by an athletic, powerful guy who throws bombs. And I got maybe a hot take for this fight too, man. I think Buckley knocks out Brady. Buckley has been training his wrestling with Kamaru Usman and was so vocal about how he got bested in their fight, so I think he's training so hard to not let that happen again. And I'm telling you, if Brady can't get this fight to the ground, I do not think it will be good for him at all. Brady lost a lot of his aura in that Morales fight to me, and we can't forget this guy also got knocked out by Bilal Muhammad, and Buckley's power is way different than Bilal Muhammad's. So I think we're going to see Buckley with improved takedown defense and either get the knockout or just outstrike Brady on the feet. Man, we've had a lot of good heavyweight matchups these last couple months, and I think this should be another great one. Volkov is 6-2 in his last 8, coming off an ugly split decision win over Joe Almeida, where Almeida did his classic lay-there technique for half the fight. His 2 losses were a split decision fight to Cyril Gane, which he debatably won, and a loss to Tom Aspinall when he was in the middle of his run back in 2022. Volkov is 6'7" with an 80-inch reach and great footwork, especially for his size. He's a very high-level striker who snipes heavyweights from the outside with his long straight punches, quick leg kicks, and front body kicks. He's also heavily improved his wrestling in the last couple years. Waldo Cortez Acosta is 10-2 in the UFC with 3 straight knockouts over Ante D'Elia, Shamil Gaziev, and Derek Lewis. He is a skilled pressure boxer with good footwork and great hand speed. He has that fastball overhand right and powerful jabs and crosses as well. He's also been implementing his hooks and elbows a lot more in his recent fights. And I like Waldo a lot, but I think Volkov handles him in this fight. I think he will struggle with the range and the reach of Volkov and the striking style of Volkov as well. And the height, I mean the guy's 6'7". And while Waldo is on a 3-fight knockout streak, D'Elia, Gaziev, and a quitting Derek Lewis are nowhere near Alexander Volkov. Man, this should be a banger. Van is coming off that fluky win over Pantoja and was 8-1 in the UFC before that fight. He got knocked out by Charles Johnson 6 fights back, but Charles Johnson is the prospect killer and he did the same thing to Lonnie Kavanaugh 3 fights later. In those 8 wins, he did only have 2 wins by knockout. He is a very skilled, high-paced, relentless boxer who has slick counters, clean striking, and great timing. He uses a quick jab to set up his right hand and does a good job mixing up his combos to the head and the body. And I know some people are talking like Van can't wrestle and he has no grappling at all, but he has proven to me that he at least has very above average takedown defense. There were no takedowns attempted on him in the Pantoja or Royval fight, but in the 4 fights before that, Bruno Silva went 1 of 6 on takedowns, Ray Soraya went 4 of 21 on takedowns, Cody Durden went 2 of 8, and Edgar Shires went 0 of 2. That's 7 of 37 on takedown defense in his last 6 fights, and it only resulted in a combined 7 minutes and 39 seconds of control time, or 66 seconds a takedown, which showcases his ability to stay safe and get up. And I know none of those guys are as high level as Tyra, but it's still worth mentioning because some people are acting like Tyra is just going to walk over to him and pick him up, and I don't think it's going to go like that at all. Tatsuro Tyra is 8-1 in the UFC, coming off a knockout over Brandon Moreno. And his only loss was a very competitive split decision to Brandon Royval, where he went 6 of 15 on takedowns and had over 12 minutes of control time, but was out-volumed and outstruck on the feet by Moreno. In his 8 UFC wins, he has 6 by finish, 3 by submission, and 3 by knockout, and he is a very dangerous fighter. He is a high-level wrestler and submission artist who utilizes his 5'7" frame and 70-inch reach to keep opponents at distance. His striking has improved a lot. He has a good straight right, solid knees and uppercuts in the clinch, and a decent calf kick when he uses it. I honestly think the biggest tell for me in this fight is the reach of Tyra. While I strongly believe Van is a much better striker than Tyra, I think the Royval loss helped develop Tyra's striking a lot. It's also important to acknowledge Royval is 5'9" with a 68-inch reach, and Van is only 5'5" with a 65-inch reach, so they won't be able to strike against Tyra in the same way. Tyra having a 5-inch reach advantage means Van will have to push in and enter the pocket a lot to do the majority of his work, which he is good at and used to, but Royval was able to attack a lot from range, which made his striking effective. I think another important thing to point out is that in Van's loss to Charles Johnson and his close fight to Royval, those are the only two fighters he's fought that are taller than 5'8" and have a reach longer than 68 inches. In his fight against Edgar Chairez, who is 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, Chairez outstruck Van 40-23 in the first round before gassing out and getting outworked. So basically, I say all that to say I think the height and reach of Tyra will cause Van a lot of problems. Tyra's rangy striking doesn't have to be better than Joshua Van's, it just has to keep him at bay and allow Tyra to set up his takedowns to get the fight to the ground, which I think he will ultimately be able to do. So I have Tyra winning a fun, competitive decision where it's very back and forth, but he's able to swing it his way with takedowns and top control time. Alright, and now the one I know y'all been waiting for. In the main event, we have Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. I want to immediately start by saying I think this is a closer fight than a lot of people think. People predicting a round 1 or round 2 finish from Khamzat are a little crazy to me. Strickland has made a career being super technically sound defensively on the feet. He's only been knocked out twice in 37 fights, once to Alex Pereira, and once in 2018 at welterweight versus Zaleski dos Santos. He's also never been submitted in his career, so I don't see a world where Khamzat can just go out there, start swinging hooks, and just get Sean out of there. And before anyone gets upset, I obviously don't think that's his initial game plan, but if Sean is actually able to stuff a couple takedowns and get up off the ground and it turns into a striking battle, I think it leans Sean as he is the much more crisper and sound striker. While he's not much of an offensive grappler, I do think Sean has showcased good takedown defense at middleweight. His takedown defense hovers around 80% and he has shown a good ability to keep moving and get back up quickly. And people do like to hate on his striking, and it kind of is just different combinations of front body kicks, jabs, and straights. It's still very effective and it works for him. Strickland used that exact style of striking perfectly to keep Fluffy at range in his last fight, and Hernandez only attempted one official takedown on Sean, which Sean stuffed. Khamzat is a whole different beast than Fluffy though, and he will not be discouraged by one failed takedown attempt against the fence and a Strickland jab. Khamzat's wrestling is just on a whole different level. The pressure, the chaining ability, the scrambling, he can take you down so many different ways. The submission game is very sound and the ground and pound is explosive. With that being said though, I do think his finishing ability has become slightly overrated. In his last 5 fights, he only had 2 finishes, and they were against Kevin Holland, who took the fight on short notice, and Robert Whittaker, who had a pre-existing history of jaw and teeth issues. He couldn't finish Gilbert Burns, he couldn't finish Usman on short notice, and despite rotisserie chickening Dricus, he couldn't get him out of there either. But that doesn't mean he still hasn't been dominant. So as much as I would like to call the Strickland round 1 knockout, I think the most likely outcome for this fight is Sean stuffs a takedown or 2 early, maybe has some success in the 5th round if Khamzat gasses out, but the majority of rounds 2, 3, and 4 will be dominated by Khamzat top control and or clinch pressure against the fence. And even if Strickland is able to have success early or late stuffing the takedowns, I know I said I thought he was the more technical striker, but I still have a lot of trust in Khamzat's ability to bite down on the mouthpiece and have a war with Sean if he needs to. I really don't think Khamzat finishes Strickland, but I don't really see Strickland finishing Khamzat either. So if that's the case, I just believe more in Khamzat's ability to enforce his game plan, and I think he most likely will be getting a decision victory over Sean Strickland. Alright, so those are my picks for UFC 328, Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. Let me know what y'all thought about the picks, let me know if I cooked, let me know if they were ass. Either way, just let me know. And I'ma keep saying it, thank y'all so much for all the support recently. It really does mean a lot. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.